I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Jake, and I want to share what happened because maybe someone out there can learn from my nightmare. My wife Emily and I have been together for about 8 years. She's smart, beautiful, and I thought she was loyal, or at least I used to believe that. We were planning this big family vacation to Florida, a reunion with her best friend Lisa and Lisa's husband Mike. We've been looking forward to it for months. It was supposed to be fun, relaxing, a break from everything. But I guess I missed all the warning signs that this trip would turn into the biggest mess of my life. At first, everything seemed normal. Emily was her usual charming self, that is, until the trip started. She was acting a little different, more irritable, snapping over small things. I thought maybe she was just tired or stressed. Then there were the little things, missing her phone at odd times, lying about being sick one day, saying she had a stomach bug. She'd always been honest with me, or so I thought. But on the third night I noticed. Her window was open and she was sneaking out after midnight. I didn't think much of it at first, just assumed she was maybe getting some fresh air or talking to Lisa or someone. But I kept catching her in little lies, and honestly it was starting to feel like I was losing my mind. One night I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, just listening for anything suspicious. Around midnight I saw her slip out of the room. I was curious but mostly angry. Why was she sneaking around? Who was she meeting? I decided to follow her quietly, trying not to make a sound. I followed her down the hall, past the elevators, and saw her slip into a room that I recognized from the lobby, Mike's hotel door. I froze there, watching her go inside. My stomach clenched. My mind was racing. I knew she'd been lying about being sick, and now I had proof she was sneaking off to meet with her best friend's husband. That's when the rage hit me like a freight train. She lied about everything, all those little moments, and now I was standing here watching her betray me in the worst way. I hesitated for a second, but then I pushed the door open just enough to see inside. She was in there, leaning against the dresser, her back to me, talking on the phone. When she turned, I saw her face. She looked surprised for a split second, then her expression turned cold. She told me she was just talking to Lisa, trying to make it seem innocent. I didn't buy it. The way she was acting, like she was hiding something, her guilty eyes, the hurried tone of her voice, I knew. I knew she'd been cheating on me with Mike, that her sick day was just a cover for sneaking off to have sex with someone else. I felt like my world was crashing down. All those years thinking I was married to someone who loved me just evaporated in that moment. I could feel the blood rushing to my head, and I just stood there, stunned. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The proof was right there, staring me in the face. The next few hours were a blur. I just kept replaying everything. Her lies, her sneaking out, the secret calls. I wanted to confront her immediately, but I knew I had to think carefully. I didn't want to jump to conclusions or yell without knowing the full story. But deep down, I already knew. I wasn't naive. I wasn't that guy who still believed in fairy tales. I knew she'd been cheating, and I knew I had to decide what to do next. The morning after I caught her in the act, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My head was pounding and my stomach was in knots. I stayed in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to process what I'd seen. Emily was sleeping soundly next to me, her breathing even, her face innocent, like she hadn't just betrayed me the night before. I looked at her, and a part of me wanted to scream at how she lied, how she sneaked around, how she cheated on me with her best friend's husband. But another part, the part I didn't want to admit, felt broken. I felt stupid for trusting her, for thinking we had something real. I finally got up, feeling numb, and started packing some clothes. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to get out of there before I lost my mind. I didn't want to confront her again just yet. I needed time to think, to figure out if I could even stay in the same room with her after what I saw. She was still sleeping when I slipped out of the room, grabbing a few things and heading out of the hotel. I didn't tell her where I was going. I didn't even tell her I was leaving. I just needed space, time to breathe, to decide if I wanted to keep fighting for this marriage or burn it all down. I drove around aimlessly for a while, trying to clear my head. Every song on the radio felt like it was mocking me. I kept thinking about everything, the lies, the sneaking around, the fact that she'd been lying about being sick, which was just a cover for her cheating. How long had she been doing this? Was it just that night, or had it been going on for weeks? All those unanswered questions haunted me. I remembered how she'd snapped at me when I asked her about her strange behavior, how she'd lied and told me she was exhausted or stressed. She had told me she loved me, that she was just overwhelmed with everything. Yeah, right, overwhelmed with Mike, maybe. When I finally got back to the hotel, I couldn't stand the silence. I waited until she was alone, then I went into our room. She was sitting on the bed, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. I looked at her and felt the anger bubble up again. I couldn't hold it in. I told her I saw her sneaking out last night, that I knew she'd been cheating with Mike. Her reaction was instant. She rolled her eyes, scoffed, and said I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that I wasn't giving her space to breathe. She told me she'd been just talking to Mike, that it was innocent, just some stupid flirtation, that she was sick of me spying, and that I was crazy for accusing her of something so horrible. I couldn't believe how she lied so easily, like she was reading from a script. She kept saying I was overreacting, that I was making a big deal out of nothing, and that I should trust her. But I couldn't. Trust was gone. It evaporated the second I saw her sneaking into that room. Still, I wanted to believe she was just trying to cover her ass, that maybe she was just a bitchy, manipulative woman who liked to lie and manipulate to get her way. Or maybe I was just naive for trusting her at all. The worst part was how she acted afterward, like nothing had changed. She started whining about how stressful the trip was, how she was just confused, and how it's not what it looks like, even though it was exactly what it looked like. I was furious, hurt, confused, and honestly pretty scared. I'd never felt this kind of betrayal before, and I didn't know if I could ever come back from it. The images of her sneaking out, her guilty face, kept flashing in my mind, and I kept asking myself, was I stupid for not seeing it earlier? Had I missed all the signs? Or was I just too blind to see how deep her lies ran? I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just sweep this under the rug and pretend everything was fine. The trust was broken, and I didn't see how we could fix it, but part of me still loved her. Part of me wanted to believe she'd change, that she'd be honest, that maybe we could work through this. But deep down, I knew better. This kind of betrayal doesn't just go away. It leaves scars. And I was already starting to realize that my life was about to change forever. After I confronted her that day, Emily's attitude didn't really change. She kept trying to brush it off, calling me paranoid and saying I was overreacting, just like she did the night before. She insisted that she loved me, that she'd never cheat, and that I was just imagining things. But her words sounded hollow, like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. I could see the guilt in her eyes sometimes, but mostly she just acted like I was the crazy one for accusing her of such a betrayal. I spent the next few days torn between anger, sadness, and confusion. I was angry because she lied to my face for months, maybe longer. Sad because I thought she was the woman I loved, the woman I trusted with everything. Confused because it didn't make sense. How could someone I shared my life with do something so cruel? Every time I looked at her, I saw her sneaking around, her guilty face, her lies. I couldn't even look at her without feeling this burning ache deep inside my chest. But what really pushed me over the edge was the fact that she kept trying to manipulate me into forgiving her. She'd say things like, "It was just sex," or "It didn't mean anything," or "Mike is just a stupid mistake," as if that made it okay. As if I should just forget everything because she said so. She tried to guilt-trip me, saying I didn't trust her enough, that I was ruining everything over a stupid fling. That's when I realized her version of being honest was just excuses to stay in her little affair bubble. One night I caught her on her phone again, texting Mike. I saw her typing, saw her delete messages. I felt like my blood was boiling. I decided to do what I should have done from the start, get proof. I installed a monitoring app on her phone, something I'd never thought I'd do. I wasn't proud of it, but I needed to know the full extent of her lies. That night I checked her messages and saw conversations that made me sick. She was talking about secret meetings, describing how hot Mike was, how he makes her feel alive. They had plans for another rendezvous, and she was excited about it. That was the moment I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. The betrayal wasn't just about one night, it was ongoing. She was lying to my face every day, and I felt like I'd been hit with a sledgehammer. I've been such a fool, believing in fairy tales, trusting that she was faithful. But now I saw the truth. She was a liar, manipulative, and she had no respect for our marriage or me. I felt numb again, but also furious. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. All those years I thought I was building a life with someone who loved me, only to find out she was cheating beside my back, talking about her sex with him like it was nothing. I decided I had to confront her again, but this time I was ready. I sat her down that night, showed her the messages, and told her. I knew everything, her reaction. She broke down, said she was sorry, that she didn't mean to hurt me, that she was just so overwhelmed, so vulnerable. She begged me to forgive her, said she loved me, that she'd never do it again. But I wasn't convinced. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her I didn't believe a word she was saying. I told her she'd crossed a line I never thought was possible, and that I didn't see how we could come back from this. The emotional toll was tremendous. I felt betrayed, stupid, and humiliated. I kept thinking about all the good times, all the plans we made, all the trust I'd given her. Now all of that seemed like a lie. I'd never felt so broken. But I also knew I couldn't keep living in this lie, pretending everything was okay. I had to decide whether to fight for her, to try to fix what was broken, or to walk away and salvage what was left of myself. Every fiber of my being told me to run, to get out before it was too late. But part of me, no matter how battered, still wanted to believe she could change, that maybe she was just a bitchy, manipulative woman who made a terrible mistake. That's what kept me awake that night, torn between love, anger, and the brutal reality that nothing would ever be the same again. The days that followed that confrontation were a roller coaster. I stayed in the hotel room alone, trying to keep my mind from spiraling completely out of control. Emily kept pleading, crying, saying she was sorry, that she loved me, that she never wanted to hurt me, that she'd do anything to fix this. Honestly, hearing her say she loved me felt like a slap in the face. How could she say she loved me after what she did? It was like she was trying to manipulate me into forgiving her, just like she always did. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I spent hours debating whether I should leave her, whether I should just pack my things and walk away. I was hurt, yes, but more than that, I was furious. Furious at her lies, furious at myself for trusting her, furious that she thought she could get away with this. I kept asking myself, how did I get here? How did I let this happen? I thought I knew her, thought she was loyal. Turns out I was blind. One night I decided to check her phone again just to see if she was hiding anything else. I knew I shouldn't have, but I couldn't help myself. As I scrolled through her messages, I saw something that made my stomach drop even further. She wasn't just texting Mike. She was talking to other men flirtatiously. One message from her was especially clear. Can't wait to see you again, sexy. Just a little longer, I promise. That was when I realized this wasn't just a one-time thing. She had multiple affairs, probably kept hidden from everyone, including her so-called best friend, Lisa. I felt a mixture of disgust and heartbreak. How deep did this rabbit hole go? How many lies had I been fed over the years? It was like every moment of trust I'd given her had been a lie. And yet, despite the betrayal, I still felt a flicker of love, just enough to make me question everything. Did I want to throw away everything we had? Or did I want to fight? Honestly, I was exhausted trying to figure it out. In the middle of all this chaos, Emily went on the defensive. She started accusing me of being paranoid, jealous, insecure. She told me I was overreacting, that I was possessive and controlling, that she needed space and was just trying to cope with everything. Her words sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced lying so many times she could do it in her sleep. I could see through it. I knew she was just trying to save her own ass. She wanted to keep her secret life hidden, keep her affairs intact, and keep me from blowing everything up. I knew I had to make a decision. Staying silent wasn't an option anymore. I had to face the brutal truth. She was a liar, a cheater, and a manipulator. But part of me still hoped she'd come clean, that she'd finally admit what she'd done and take responsibility. I didn't want to be that guy who just walked away without even trying to understand what was real and what was a lie. But every time I thought about forgiving her, the images of her sneaking around, texting other men, and lying to my face came rushing back. It was like a poison inside me, eating away at whatever was left of my trust. So I sat her down again, this time more firm. I told her I knew about all her secret texts about her other affairs. I told her I was done playing her game, that I couldn't stay married to someone who lied so effortlessly, who had no respect for me or our vows. She begged me, told me she'd change, promised she'd stop everything, but I had heard that before. Honestly, I didn't believe a word of it. She was a bitchy, manipulative woman who thought she could get away with anything. And maybe she could have if I'd let her. But I wasn't that guy anymore. It was the beginning of the end. I knew I had to choose whether to fight for what was left of us or to cut my losses and walk away. Either way, I felt like I had been shattered into a million pieces. This betrayal had cut so deep, I didn't even recognize myself anymore. I suddenly realized how much I'd trusted her, how much I'd loved her, and how much I'd lost in just a few days of discovery. The emotional toll was overwhelming, and the worst part was knowing that nothing would ever be the same again. The decision didn't come easily, but deep down I knew I couldn't keep living in this fog of betrayal. The more I thought about her lies, her cheating, her manipulation, the more I realized I had to face the harsh truth. Our marriage was beyond saving if she was willing to lie and cheat so blatantly. I told her I needed some space, then packed my bags and left the hotel. I didn't tell her where I was going. I just needed to get away from her, from the lies, from the constant pain. I drove aimlessly for hours trying to process everything. The silence in my head was deafening. While I was gone, she kept texting me, begging me to come back, promising she'd change, that she loved me, that she was sorry for everything she'd done. But nothing she said felt genuine anymore. It was just her trying to manipulate me into forgiving her. I saw right through it. I knew she was just trying to save her ass, keep her secret life hidden, and keep her comfortable. The woman I had married was gone. What was left was a stranger, someone who lied effortlessly, betrayed me, and thought she could get away with it. Over the next few days, I reached out to Lisa, her best friend. I needed to know what she knew, what she suspected. To my shock, Lisa was just as blindsided as I was. She had no idea Emily was cheating with Mike. She kept saying her best friend was a good girl, loyal, honest. That made everything worse, honestly. If Lisa hadn't known, then Emily had been hiding this from everyone, including her own best friend. I started to see just how deep Emily's lies went, how much she had been hiding, even from her closest confidants. I also reached out to a lawyer. I knew I couldn't just leave without protection, especially if Emily decided to try to keep everything. Our house, our assets, everything. I told her I was serious about divorce, about ending the lie once and for all. Her response was typical: more tears, more promises, more begging. She kept saying she'd stop everything, that she'd fix herself, but I didn't buy it. Not anymore. The trust was shattered. There was no fixing this with words or tears. It was broken beyond repair. In the quiet moments, I kept replaying everything. How I had been so blind, how I had trusted her more than anyone in the world. I thought about all the times she'd lied about being sick, about her mood swings, about her running off late at night. All those little things I brushed aside, thinking she just had a stressful life. Turns out she was sneaking around, having sex with Mike, and lying to my face every chance she got. It hurt so much that I didn't even know who she was anymore. I felt a strange mix of anger and sadness. I was angry at her for what she'd done, furious at myself for not seeing it sooner, but also sad because I'd lost her, the woman I thought I knew, the wife I loved. I wondered if I could forgive her, if I even wanted to. Right now, the only thing I knew was that I needed to get out of there, to take control of my life again. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay, because deep down I knew the truth. She'd betrayed me in the worst way possible, and I had to learn how to live with that somehow. In the end, I pulled the trigger and filed for divorce. It wasn't an easy choice, but it was the only one that made sense. I couldn't stay married to someone who had so easily betrayed everything we built. The process was messy: hours of legal meetings, emotional exhaustion, and the constant thought that I was throwing away 8 years of my life. But I knew I had to do it for myself. I couldn't keep living in the shadow of her lies and her constant manipulations. Losing her was like losing a part of my soul. I felt like I'd been punch-drunk, still reeling from everything I'd discovered. But as time went on, I started to rebuild myself. I cut all contact with Emily, blocked her from my phone, and focused on healing. I started therapy, something I never thought I'd need to deal with the emotional fallout. It helped me see things clearly, to accept that some betrayals are so deep they leave permanent scars. Looking back, I realize I learned some harsh lessons. Trust is fragile, and when it's broken, it's nearly impossible to repair. Never ignore the warning signs, no matter how small. People often lie, sometimes because they think they're justified, sometimes because they're just selfish. And the worst lies are the ones we tell ourselves to stay comfortable. I also learned that self-respect is the most important thing. Staying in a relationship built on deception only harms you more in the long run. Now I'm focusing on myself. I've started dating casually, but I don't rush into anything serious. I want to make sure I'm truly healed before I commit again. I've realized that I deserve honesty and loyalty, things I lost with Emily. If there's one thing I want others to take from my story, it's this: trust your gut, watch for the signs, and never settle for less than you deserve. Because once betrayal happens, it's impossible to go back to the way things were. And sometimes, the best thing you can do is walk away and start over.